Joining me this morning are my guests, Mr. Amit Motwani, CEO of Rupani Foundation, Niloufar Ali, Director of Programs, and my dear friend who needs no intro is Mahtab Muradi, behavioral therapist. So today we are going to discuss the importance of early childhood education and learn the ways in which Rupani Foundation is using early childhood education as a tool in building a secure and healthy future for children. So good morning, everyone. How are you all doing?
Good morning, really well. I'm so glad to be here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's my pleasure. This is the first time I'm having Ms. Amit Motwani, and I have Niloufar here. So I'm really excited to talk about Rupani Foundation. We have been involved with the foundation a few years back, but we've never had y'all come on Chai Time. So this is really great and very exciting. And thanks to Mahtab, of course.
I'm like, did you say behavioral therapist? Because I'm supposed to behave today.
Yes.
Okay, good.
She's been in bad behavior since this morning. So I gave her some water.
These guys are gonna help me stay in check.
Right.
Yeah, it makes me think I should have had more than just 2 cups of coffee this morning.
So let's begin with a brief overview of Rupani Foundation.
Yeah, thanks. And just want to repeat how great it is to be here with y'all. It seems like we should have done our homework and tried to join you a long time back. So thanks for giving us the chance to share more about our work. Rupani Foundation has been around since about 2007, technically as an organization, founded by philanthropist Nasruddin Rupani, who is from Pakistan originally. And that's where he initially was doing his development work, and his investment in communities was in Pakistan and in unincorporated regions of Afghanistan as well. Providing job training for families, bringing electricity, irrigation, trees to mountainous areas, so that families could have opportunities for sustainability. And of course, as many philanthropists do, they began to learn about evidence-based interventions, and it became quickly obvious that early childhood education was a clear opportunity, or a clear pathway for opportunity for many of the families there. He began his investment there, his investments in community there, and shortly thereafter, being a resident of Houston, he really adapted the adage, think globally, act locally, and began to invest here because it turns out in Houston there are 300,000 children in poverty who could really benefit from having access to high quality early childhood education. Niloufar Ali, our director of programs, who's really, if not my right arm, both of my legs as well, at the organization, and there's a strong reason for that, and that's because she's been with Mr. Rupani and the Rupani Foundation since Pakistan.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. Yeah, it's a privilege to be with the Rupani Foundation. So I started working with the Rupani Foundation since 2010. So I'm also the luckiest person who is invited to work with the Rupani Foundation, and they requested me to join the Rupani Foundation in really interiors of Sindh, where there were so many no-go areas. Girls and ladies cannot go into those areas, and I was lucky to be there. And then I got a lot of respect from that interior Sindh community, and we started working there from scratch, and now we have more than 200 centers across Pakistan. And we are also very lucky to start working here with Rupani Foundation Houston, and we have, before pandemic, we have 8 centers which were working very actively, and now we are again in person, and we have a few centers in Houston, and a lot of mothers. We are working with Afghan refugees too, so yes, very privileged.
Yeah, and I have, actually the Chai Time team has been in one of the centers. This was before COVID,
yeah.
Yes. Yes, and we had come to your office, we had a chance to talk to you, and it was, the center was, we actually got to interact with see the kids, see the moms, and the way the teacher out there was interacting with the kids, and it was such a great experience for us. And even at that time, the mothers, there was of course a need to be translated, but it was just so nice to see them, the kids getting involved, as like they were really young, but they were still being encouraged to do things or to even clap their hands, and it was such a great atmosphere, and it was really nice to visit one of those centers. And that was before COVID, of course, and but we really enjoyed that visit. And talking to you, you know, like at the office, getting to know all the work that you do. And it is so nice that you're here and you can share and elaborate on all the work that has been done by the foundation.
Yes, of course.
Mata?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, actually, I'm so elated by the notion that you all visited a center and saw that work actually happening. You know, I think about children having a great time with their folks and with our facilitators, moms, sometimes dads every now and then, but really mostly moms, playing with the kids. And it's so easy just to come in and smile and love it all. And it's also really great to have that second lens on where you can see that these interactions are actually mothers and children achieving stronger bonds, both emotionally and mentally, because they're practicing serve and return interactions, and they're practicing really best practices in early childhood development, meaning that indirectly, just through these interactions that moms and their kids are taught, and many of them of course already know these things intrinsically, as we know from our cultures, we're making sure that children are meeting their developmental milestones. And so even though of course in our cultures we have ancestral knowledge about how to raise very young children, how to massage them, how to hold them, how to make them sleep, how to make them eat, sometimes that information is not always coded out into knowing, ooh, the child should be able to do these 3 things by age 1 or by 6 months. The child should be able to do these 10 things by 2 years. They should be able to do buttons. And if not, maybe we should get that looked at to catch a developmental delay early and solve that problem early. So yeah, it's I love that you all were able to see all of that in action.
Yes, we did. We actually even had an event for the moms and the kids at a place called Artsy Soul, where the moms came, made mosaic, made their own artwork, craft work, and they were, you know, they had the option of either painting or doing mosaic art, and the expression on their face was more about, they were so intense at first, but then later on down, as the time was going, they were just enjoying it. And we were all there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful opportunity for all those mothers who came over, and then they did everything by their hands. Some of them, they would never been to school, right? So
Yes.
this exposure was really wonderful for all those mothers and kids also. So it was wonderful.
And you know, thanks to y'all made all the arrangements of bringing them, because it was all the way in Sugar Land. So it was, y'all made the arrangements of making sure all of them were, you know, being transported over there. And it was 3 hours of just fun. A lot of fun. I wish I'd do that again soon.
Exactly, and then all those mothers, they still were asking for their experience again. So.
Yeah, definitely. We can plan something for sure. Yeah.
I love hearing this kind of sense of empowerment in, you know, when you teach someone. As a mom, I remember like the difference between having my first child and second, and I'm a, you know, I was that overthinking mom. I read every book and everything that could go wrong, and I got into my own head, okay, just stop, and being able to give these moms simple tools. Yeah. And also reminding them that there's something instinctual, that you know how to be a parent, and don't deny that. So one of the things I loved about this organization was their openness to that dialogue. For example, when I got pulled into the situation, we started the mothers groups. And so here we are, as we're talking to the moms, they're like, well, you need to talk to the dads. You need to talk to the men. And then, so I tell him, I'm like, okay, I mean, this is what they're saying. This is real time happening. And so then he's having to roll up his sleeves, because he's like, well, culturally, we probably should go in there together. So, because you by yourself, and you know, you being the hot mess you are without, you know, in this group setting. So we went in there, and the most amazing things started happening in these dialogues. Everyone's guards came down. we started capturing the essence of fatherhood, how important it is to really relay that message of safety and how to anchor your family, especially in such a chaotic time. You know, when you look at, and we've talked about this before, being a refugee, being, you know, it's different. You didn't have a choice, and you didn't have time to kind of get used to this idea of leaving. And then when you look at the huge difference between cultural norms. So it's absolutely, for me, it was very emotional because I felt like my whole life was just making a full circle. And I remember our first session, no, I think it was with Nilüfer.
Yes.
And I got really emotional, and the kids were literally sitting on me, around me, and like, where is this person? They couldn't believe I was a woman who drove herself there. That was one shock factor. And then when I started speaking Farsi, it was just such a sign of relief. Like, oh, I think she might actually like understand what we're trying to say. And then a few sentences into that, I was like, you know, I was you. I was that kid. I only knew like one word in English. But I had so many people like who cared enough. Teachers, you know, neighbors. My own father, he was like, you know, we're not gonna move into that area of town where all the Iranians live because we came here to acculturate, and he wanted me to speak English without an accent and truly dive in. It's like, if we made it all the way here, we might as well go for it. And I remember him telling me, like, we're gonna celebrate everything everybody else celebrates.
Long way, you know, when you connect that to brain development. And I think, you know, unfortunately, or for whatever it's worth at this point, I think we're lucky to all likely be well behind it. And I don't want to make any assumptions on anyone else's part, but I think a lot of us are familiar with, you know, being hit in public, or children being hit in public culturally. It's not, you know, it's not such a novel, unfortunately, thing for Asian and South Asian families. For sure. And I think, like Mehtab was saying, and to underscore both what Mehtab and Nilüfer were saying, these are really key teachable moments. When we can show that safety, it helps brain development. That means that helps make sure that my child can reach her full potential, or his full potential. Then I'm going to do everything I can to create a safe environment. You know, if I hear that trauma reduces the opportunity for brain development, then I'm going to do whatever I can to reduce trauma. You know, so yeah, it's really, really important.
Yeah, so this is, you know, from here we can just see it, right? So stress, if you give them stress, so they can build up on that. And then you can damage all those neurons which they are awarded, right? So that's why research is saying that they are awarded with trillions of brain cells, and we just end up with thousands. So what we are doing, we are just damaging, and we are just pruning them, not providing them with a proper environment and a conducive environment to learn. So whatever you are doing, because these early environment, early experiences are really affect their actual health also. So they end up with the diabetes, blood pressure, and all those things. This is linked from there. So if you are providing them very responsive relationship in the environment, you can then build a very, very nice brain. So these brains are really important. So we have to secure all those brains, and then we have to really teach them, those mothers also, because they are, at the end of the day, 20% of their time is with the teacher, but 80% they spend their time at home. So what you are working for the 20% or 80%. So we have to be really focused on 80%. That's why Rupani Foundation is working on mothers, so that if the mothers are trained, then half of your work is already done.
All right, we have to go into a short break. But when we come back, we will continue our conversation. This is Chai Time on 99.5 FM. Back to Chai Time on 99.5 FM. We are in conversation with the team of Rupani Foundation, and we've been talking about early childhood education, how important it is, and how it serves as a tool for the foundation as well. So let's continue. Let's go, Mata.
All right. Well, I think you and I had talked about this in previous shows. Like, my passion for early childhood started in undergrad at UT, where I always tell people my favorite job was when I was a nanny. But I was my professor's nanny. She did research in childhood development and how children develop socially. So my focus group at that time as an RA was 3 to 7 year olds. And I had, I remember my job was to do a puppet show and ask both kids, you know, both boys and girls, like, okay, if there was a replica of this planet and a replica of you, how would you respond to these like social scenarios? And then we would code that data, and of course, you know, I was the data collector, but a lot of good things came out of kind of how we perceive as a child the environment, and then what we can do as adults to manipulate in the positive sense of the word, the environment to raise the child's awareness and optimize. Like, let's say you have the potential, you know, you've got a pretty healthy IQ, but your environment is poor. And by poor, I mean non-stimulating. Adults who are not engaged, like Amit was saying. Maybe lack of toys. Maybe it's the physical world that is kind of dull and not conducive to a child's learning potential. So I worked on that, and I fell in love with the work, and I ended up being her nanny for my senior year and a part of my junior year. But I didn't see myself going the PhD route because I love connection too much. I love people. So I parted with that team, but I used every bit of that experience with my own kids. And it's amazing what we do with our kids, the tools we give them early on. You know, they say a baby can hear and recognize a mother's voice at 26 weeks. So I started reading to my kids when they weren't even like physically here. And we would have talks, and you know, I know it's like I just do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But it does set them apart, and and you know, my kids have been through their own share of very traumatic experiences, but they have come out better and stronger as a result. And I think it was because of that foundation work and creating the space to talk and giving the tools. Sharing the power. You know, one thing like I loved about the work that they're doing, it's about the child. It's child-centered, giving the parents the tools they need. Or even if it means you need to get down on the floor so you're at the kid's level. And, you know, even if when they do something wrong, instead of your first instinct to be, well, my parents, you know, whooped me and this is why I'm so disciplined. But maybe you turned out disciplined, but maybe you're lacking the tools to do conflict resolution in your spousal relationship because somebody shut you down in that pivotal point of maybe you making a mistake. If an adult had invited you and thought through a problem with you, fast forward 20 years as an adult, maybe you won't be that guy or that girl in a relationship who's running away from conflict. Or who has difficulty making healthy attachments. I mean, there's so many things, like the psychology behind childhood and all the layers and how it plays out throughout our lives it's amazing. And I think I love this organization for putting their money on the kids. Because in adulthood, it's a lot harder to fix an adult. I can speak to that. You know, I think they should be charged double. No. But in adulthood is unlearning.
Right.
You have to unlearn the wrong ways that you learned, and then start building a foundation. Whereas with children, you can, you know, a child can get in a fight on a playground, and literally 5 minutes later, everything is fine with the other kid if the adults leave them alone.
Right.
But you know,
yeah, that's true. Mehta, to your point, there's something this happens in our classrooms as well. When kids are fighting, at some point, parents are starting to fight, right? So, and then we have to make them understand. Okay, just let it be. and then we have to fix everything for them, for mothers also. So they need to understand that this is normal. And you said very right that environment really counts, and when you provide them a very responsive environment for them, they can do better. They can do everything for themselves afterwards. And early years are, that's why we say that first 1,000 days are very important. If you work in these first 1,000 days, then you are done already. So it counts a lot. So what we have to do, we have to provide them with a holistic environment, holistic approach. So what holistic development means is you have to provide them with the physical development, emotional development, social development, language development. All these are very important. So we cannot address one developmental aspect and leave the other one. So we have to work for all those developmental domains. So they all are important. So sometimes a lot of educated people, they are very well educated but not aware. So they say that we know a lot of things, but to understand early childhood education, we have to be in practice, and we need to know that what are the things we have to do with these kids. So providing a very conducive environment is important. And then research is saying that sometimes kids are very intelligent genetically, but if you provide proper environment, then you can beat the genes too. So
Yeah, I think I really appreciate you, Neela, for bringing up the dimensions of development. Because it lets us talk a little bit about our curriculum, which is based, or our curriculum, which is called Informed Parent Curriculum. Not an exciting name, but a very topical and clear indication of what the work is. And those developmental dimensions are, not surprisingly, from the Harvard Center for the Developing Child. Neela and her team weekly go and literally meet families where they are. So in many cases, we're meeting families at apartment communities where, of course, there are many low-income folks. Imagine folks just arriving from their countries with literally nothing, just being told that the plane is leaving right now and getting on the plane with nothing. In these communities, instead of saying, hey, why don't you meet us at X location or Y location, we're going and setting up, Neela and her team are going and setting up groups weekly at the clubhouses, and they're setting up an environment that's a really comfortable and welcoming environment. Of course, that's conducive to the child's learning, but it's also helpful for traditionally the moms who are attending. It's a real great escape to have a comfortable, nice environment when the stressors of the day are constantly adding up. So in addition to, in a weekly sense, teaching about developmental milestones, Neela and her team also evaluate the home learning environment for the child, and that means a ton. So Mehtab was mentioning how she appreciates how the organization invests in early childhood development, but we don't do that alone. And as a public charity, in addition to the generous contributions of Nasruddin Rupani, many of our board members, as well as many other members of the Ismaili community and the community at large here in Houston and around the world, we are invested in by the Episcopal Health Foundation, the Federal Office of Refugee Resettlement, the George Foundation, HEB, among many other organizations who invest in our work. And what we learn is that, to get public investment, you really need to be using a rigorous evidence-based curriculum, and so that's what we're using. Neela and her team go and evaluate the home learning environment, and to get that kind of confidence to enter the home of a family is a really big deal. But it's also an opportunity. If we're working with families who are suffering in many ways due to low income, due to cultural acclimatization, due to language issues, due to not having just basic needs set up, that gives us an opportunity to be able to navigate and support families in achieving what they need through our social service system. So not only does Neela and her team support in early childhood development, but also in all of the needs that can help encase that development in a safe and secure way and reduce the stressors in the family. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, and our curriculum is, Mehtab just mentioned that 25% of brain develops inside mother's womb. So we also cater those pregnant mothers what they need and what are the needs of the fetus inside mother's womb. And then because it has complete curriculum for 9 months. And then, as she said, that child sees he can learn, hear you really well. So, and whatever you talk to him, he understands all the language, and then language development starts from mother's womb. And also he listens to music and everything. Whatever you do, that veteran, he adopts everything from mother's womb. And then if mother is going through stress, or her environment is not really good for her, and she's getting stress from her environment, her spouse is not really good with her. So she, at the end of the day, the child affects, and then he can be suffer, right? So we also focus on the prenatal life too, and we provide everything, the basic needs, and we have done some conferences since inception of Rupani Foundation in Houston, also internationally. And we also include fathers, because fathers, as you said, that they have a very, very huge role in child development. In our culture, in Asian culture, we say that, oh, this is only mother's role to develop and nurture the child. But research is saying that those fathers who are involved in child development, their kids are very, very intelligent, and they can develop holistically, as I said just before. So holistic development is very important. And then first year, when child completes his first birthday, 75% of brain develops. So look at the power of that first year. What we do for the child in the first year. So we have to really work hard for all those developmental milestones, and we at Rupani Foundation really work on those developmental milestones. And if you talk about the developmental milestones, first 2 months, child can see only black and white. So a lot of those educated people, they don't know that what we should provide in those first months. We have to provide black and white graphics, black and white stuff, books and everything, so that he can learn a lot, and we cannot waste those first 2 months. And then when you go into the third month and fourth month, there is a certain written curriculum for them, what child is learning in those 4 months, and then 5th month, 6th month. So everything is written down. And we really follow that curriculum, and our curriculum is very, very powerful for those mothers and all those people out there. But you know, you don't need to be very well educated for nurturing your child. If you are well aware, you're trained, then you can do a lot of things. As Amit mentioned, the servant interactions. We are already doing that, but doing it properly and under very trained teachers is very important.
You know, that makes me wonder, like, so I'm wondering if it's worth it, Lynn and Metal, if y'all think, like, you know, Nilofer, you mentioned some of those dimensions, right, of the curriculum and the dimensions of development. Could you give an example maybe in each of the dimensions of an activity or something that a child should be able to do? Like you mentioned physical, right? So what is something that is an example of physical development?
So for example, physical development starts from when the child comes to this world. So he has like, he should do the tummy time from 2 months, and he should lift his head up, right? That comes under physical development. If you are not doing the tummy time on proper time, then we cannot develop those muscles from here, his hands, in his this front muscle and the back muscle, and then all the backbone is developing in first 2 months, because he needs to lift his head up for physical development. And then for his vision and for his everything in approach, he has to look around. And when you keep the child this way all the time, he just see the roof, nothing, right? So we have to keep him in a proper way. So that is very important for his physical development. And for language development, as Amit says, that you have to talk to the child a lot when he is inside the womb. You can talk to him. You have to share your daily routine with the child so he can listen to you. And then those kids whose mothers are working really hard this way, they are way ahead of other kids in the environment. So that is for language development. And then again, it comes to social and emotional development. When child is crying, you just leave the child like that. Okay, let him cry. But no, we have to be really sensitive about that. Why he's crying? We have to answer the child, and then we have to ask him what your need is, and we have to address that need. So that is really important for social and emotional development of the child. And cognitive development, we have to provide them with the right appropriate material, which is age appropriate, toys, books, and everything. That's how we can develop him cognitively. Like if child is, as I said, if he is 2 months old, we have to provide with the black and white graphics, black and white books, black and white written things, so that he can see those things, and that's how he can develop himself cognitively. So this is all holistic development and domains of development we have to address throughout these years, right? So as I said, till 1 year he develops 75% of his brain, and till 3 years he develops 90% of brain. But we really work for remaining 10%, not for the 90%. So if you work in these first 3 years and 9 months in the womb, then you work for 90%.
Wow.
So we have to think about those critical aspects of child development. And environment, as I said, environment really counts. There should be a conducive learning environment for the child in the environment. This is not only mother's job, this is everybody's job.
Right.
So as there is a African proverb that it takes the whole village to raise a child.
Correct.
So not only mother can do a lot, right? So everyone has to play their role in the environment. And we have to provide the child with every possible thing, whatever they need.
Yeah. Wow.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
No, it's
And it's
taken
so
more
true,
than that
it's
from
true.
in my kids.
Exactly. And then, everything happens in early years. Everything you can develop in early years, like executive function, that is what we have to develop in early years, because that helps us afterwards in decision making, doing right things, and doing every good choice in your family, for yourself, for your kids. So if you provide this responsive, healthy environment in the community, in the home, and in whole community, then you can build that executive function, which is really, really important for the child. And then resilience. How can you build the resilience in these kids? So you have to provide that environment, positive environment, and then if the child is stimulating with the right material, age-appropriate material, then you can do that.
Now, I come away from that with two things. One thing is that, like, I feel when a child is clapping and singing their birthday song or her birthday song, and she's smiling and singing with the whole family and clapping her hands, that's like kind of all the domains at once.
All the domains, yeah.
And so, singing and clapping together is much more than what it seems, just in the, at how it meets the eye. And then, secondly, when it comes to that, it takes a village, I think a lot about our cultures and our families and how traditionally our families are, which is not necessarily purely nuclear families, but with grandma there, both sides grandparents there, in-laws there, and so the child is always on somebody's knee. They bounce from one person's knee to another person's knee to another, and so if somebody's busy, they're always there. They're always being stimulated. They're always being loved and hugged and shown that it's a safe place to be and a safe place to learn. And someone's always singing and talking back to them. And I think that says a lot about how our cultures have special knowledge about that village approach. It's an intrinsic approach.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's why we globally, Rupani Foundation is having grandparents sessions every month, and we also have me and my dad session every month, and then youth programs for kids, so that they should learn early childhood education before having kids, and they should be ready for the proper environment, because if a husband learns what early childhood education is and what is the development and what it takes to nurture a child, then he can be a good father afterwards. So that's why we do youth sessions and newly married couple sessions for married couples, so that they should be ready for their kids. And this is how the Rupani Foundation works internationally. And grandparents are part of our program. So because child is learning without any hard work from their grandparents, and then all that wealth of knowledge they transfer to their grandkids. And it's very important for them to be with their grandkids, and because normally when they were nurturing their kids, they don't have that much time to help with their own kids. And once they're grandparents, they have a lot of time to work with their kids. So there is a good, really good example to bring the kids up.
Wow, you'll cover all the bases. It's so great, because that's, you're like taking each family member, thinking about, how they can be involved in their children. So, and how important it is as well for the whole family to be involved, not just the mother. So that is really great. And I really wanted to share that when we went to see at the center, right, at first when we were observing, we didn't quite understand it, in the sense you're like, okay, they are singing, they are playing, and they're having a good time. But when y'all explained to us, one of the teachers came and explained, no, these are the skills which they'll be learning. Like they are going to pick up the ball, or it's the different colors, or we are playing, or we are having this song where we have to stand up and then sit down and then stand up and turn around. So those are all the skills. And then it dawned on us, like, yeah, wow,
Like
it is.
Fine motor, gross motor.
Yes.
Mirroring.
Yeah.
The social smile. Like, yeah, there's so many things
So
happening.
many, yeah.
So we just see that they are throwing the ball and the mother is throwing the ball back. So that is a huge research. That's called interactions. If you're not just throwing the ball, because the child is thinking a lot emotionally, and then he's happy, he's playing with his mother or whoever he is or she is. So that's how you develop the child's brain, and you are connecting those neurons, because as I said before, if we connect right neurons at right time, they become permanent and part of their brain. So these serve and return interactions are very, very important for the child at this time. And if the mother is learning how to play these serve and return activities, then she can do a lot for her child.
And speaking of the brain, that's an arena that Rupani Foundation is hoping to have a better footprint in. A lot of the families we're working with have suffered so much trauma. And not only that, in general, low-income families have been, as the pandemic has shown us, are suffering disproportionately to their counterparts who have higher incomes. And that means that they're experiencing toxic stressors. The phone bill can't be paid, the home bill can't be paid, I might lose my job, I don't know about this vaccine stuff, where do I get a doctor's appointment, I don't have insurance, my child is not maybe speaking as well as I would like her or him to be. They start to stack up, and these things start to weigh. And then especially a lot of moms who haven't been informed around potential emotional or behavioral challenges, postpartum, perhaps mental health circumstances, or even prenatal. Those things can really, really stack up. So Rupani Foundation is doing right now our best to work with some leading partners, one of which is the Hackett Center for Mental Health, to find ways to build a crosswalk between where our families are, and it's not just our families, but where our families are in the clinical health system, clinical mental health system. Where our families are, just like myself growing up, we didn't have vocabulary for mental health things. It's either, you're crazy or you're not, and if you're talking about mental health, what are you saying, I'm crazy? And that was the stigma that we used to carry around it. Now, of course, thank goodness that we're so much more advanced than that. And we really recognize mental health as like, the same as having a broken arm. I need to fix that, and so I can be functional and move and be my best self again. And so we're trying to find how we can meet our families where they are, the families we serve, so that we can build that vocabulary, we can build that comfortable avenue of referral, if needed, to our clinical mental health system. So that's a really strong avenue of where Rupani Foundation plans to be moving in the future.
I love that how you capture that. Whenever I meet with clients, and you're right, we used to be so reactive to mental health. And sometimes my clients tell me, well, what do you mean I can call you at any hour? And I said, because you will not need me to this extent. And we are here, just like when you have a broken arm, once that surgeon takes care of you, you get in a cast, yes, they might be kind of on top of that health issue, but how many broken arms do you have in your lifetime? And I want people to think of their mental health proactively. Yeah. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be ill-informed or under-informed. But gosh, you created a life, so take care of it. I even in my personal journey, I took 2 years off to really allocate my energy to my kids. And this was a very hard conversation I had with my parents, and my dad's like, you've helped save everyone else's kid, and now something's happened, and let's pause, and I got your back, and it's the best thing I did. Yeah. And it's important to know when, and getting the right help. So normalizing it, like in our communities, it's okay to need each other. It doesn't mean you're weak. Yes. It's okay to be a mom and not know what to do, or it's okay to be a mom and be tapped out emotionally. Maybe your hormones are out of whack. Maybe you got postpartum depression. You don't even know it. And call your aunt, call your neighbor. Can someone get this baby off my hands just for an hour, for me to regroup? And we got to normalize that, and we have to do that together. We shouldn't be judgmental. It happens to everybody. Nobody has immunity to mental health.
Yes.
Especially in the world that we're living in.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, wow, the time just went by really fast. But this was great conversation. So much information on, the foundation itself, and also on early childhood education, the importance of it. So how can the community get involved?
I think the best thing the community could do is listen to this episode of Chai Time, and learn more, because our work is to inform, unlock, and connect. So the more we inform, the better better off we are as a community. So I recommend, if we want to learn about resilience, Google TED Talk, Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris on ACEs. It's very, very interesting. You'll learn a lot about how mental health and early childhood development and just childhood development are all linked to health outcomes. I would say also look up Bruce Perry, Interview with Oprah Winfrey, if you want to learn about how trauma affects children in the womb and in their first days of development. And then finally, you can visit us at RupaniFoundationUSA.org. And we are always happy to accept your financial contribution, because we know that is a very high yield on investment. And if you're interested in volunteering, please reach out to Chai Time Radio by means of this show, obviously with Lynn, if you know Mehtab as well, or do so on our website. We are happy to hear from you, and we'll let you know of the next opportunity that you can help. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Mehtab. You're
Thank you,
always
Mehtab.
awesome.
She's awesome.
Thank you.